Hello and welcome to Rewildology, the nature podcast that explores the human side of conservation, travel, and rewilding the planet. I'm your host, Brooke Mitchell, conservation biologist and adventure traveler. This month, we are doing something brand new on the show. I've run the numbers and calculated the results to come up with Rewildology's top 5 wildest hits. If you're new to the show or have been listening since day one, these episodes created the most buzz on the internet and on podcast apps. Starting today and running through the end of the month, I'll be releasing the top 5 interview episodes on the show so far for you to enjoy again or for the first time. And don't worry, I'll be in the background creating all kinds of new stuff for you all in the meantime. First up on our Wildest Hits Series is episode 39, Saving the Elephants of Laos with Michael Vogler. Michael is the co-founder of Mandalao Elephant Conservation in Laos and is deeply entrenched in captive Asian elephant conservation. He met me at my apartment in the summer of 2021 for a pretty mind-blowing conversation. Just wait until you hear his stories. All right, everyone, please enjoy this conversation with Michael. Thanks so much, Michael, for coming on and stopping in your time here back in the U.S. to chat with me and chat with everyone here on Rewildology. But before we get to Laos and elephants and all of your amazing work, where did this all start? Like, where did you grow up? What was your journey that brought you from childhood to what you're doing now?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure I can really point to many specific events that kind of instilled this love of nature and wildlife, but I grew up in Indian Hills, Colorado. So just up the road from here, and, grew up with horses and miniature donkeys and goats and dogs and, pet birds, and was surrounded with animals. So I think that was part of what instilled, just the love of animals in my life. And also, just the deer and the elk and occasional mountain lion and bear that would come through. We were kind of living up in that part of the mountains where you see wildlife pretty frequently. Yeah, my dad used to take me out camping as much as possible when we were younger. So spent a ton of my early years out camping with him and hiking, and just love nothing more than being out in the woods, being out in nature. So yeah, kind of followed that through later in high school. Get a few buddies together and we drive up to Western Canada to British Columbia and go, backpack one of the trails on Vancouver Island for a week. And that was kind of our escape, was just to be in the middle of nowhere and surround ourselves with bears and, be in cool spots. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but smoke a bunch of weed.
Oh, well, you can totally say that. You can say whatever you want on this podcast.
Back in the day in high school, British Columbia was like the
place to go.
the pot mecca. So we'd get up there and cross the border and just be stoned and hike around these gorgeous forests.
It sounds like every 17-year-old's dream.
It was pretty perfect. Yeah, so always kind of a passion. And went to school up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado Mountain College, for an associate's degree in outdoor education, which is basically the coolest degree ever. It's just like rock climbing and mountaineering and canyoneering.
I didn't even know it was a thing. It's epic.
Yeah, it's for people who want to get into kind of teaching that kind of stuff. So I wonder some of the organizations, the big ones that take young kids out, students, like Outward Bound, those type programs. So I did a year of that. My grades weren't particularly good in high school. It was pretty hard not to get straight A's, taking classes like that in Steamboat. So I was able to get a scholarship to go up to Portland State for my bachelor's in environmental sciences. And it was kind of just through connections up there. I got an internship, I guess it would have been my junior year, the summer off, to go work with the Orangutan Foundation in Southern Borneo. And that was kind of my first real exposure to on the ground, conservation project. And they had a pretty broad scope, whether it was working directly with the orangutans themselves, ones that had been displaced through palm oil plantations, or ones that were ex-captive in the illegal wildlife trade, or, displaced by forest fires, whatever it might be. So they had that section, but also kind of sustainable community-based farming plots. So they teach villagers living around the edges of these parks how to compost, how to basically get away from slash and burn agriculture. So they stopped chopping down trees. They'd stop selling their land to palm oil corporations and actually be able to live like a sustainable life off the land without degrading it. So that was cool to see kind of full circle, because there's a lot of steps in conservation. It's not just telling people, hey, you can't go into this forest and chop down a tree, or you can't, go and poach an animal, because they don't have livelihoods. That's what they depend on. So a lot of the work they did was focused on community-based development, which was pretty intriguing. So went back to school, finished my degree, and got kind of a joint opportunity. And tell me if I'm rambling on.
No, oh my gosh, please don't stop. Keep going.
Yeah, kind of a joint opportunity between a Denver-based nonprofit called the Global Livingston Institute. And they've been bringing students and community leaders down to Uganda and Rwanda for well over 10 years now. One of my close friends started it. So it was kind of an opportunity with them and the Mountain Gorilla organization. So we kind of partnered together and spent a good amount of time there, about a year in between the DRC, Rwanda, and Uganda. And really that was just based on community-based development work. Mm-hmm. So that was working with, it's the Batwa people. It's actually the only indigenous group of people in kind of Central Africa.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and one of the most displaced groups. I mean, a lot of people talk about the genocide in Rwanda and the DRC between the Hutus and the Tutsis, and they were fighting, but the Batwa they were fighting, both the Hutus and the Tutsis were fighting the Batwa. So they're the most like displaced, like disenfranchised group of people living in the country, and they were the ones that were still in Volcanoes National Park or Virunga National Park, where the gorillas are. They were the last ones that were hunter-gatherers, that when they really started implementing strict rules that no one was allowed in the park, they kicked all of them out, which, in order to protect the gorillas, they had to do it. And there just was not enough space left for humans and elephants to kind of coexist within that area. But they didn't give them the tools to succeed in life after kicking them out. So they had no education, really no even basic skills for farming, no real sense of, clean water systems. I mean, they were used to living off the jungle. So the Batwa are basically living around the fringes of all of the national parks in Uganda as well, around Bwindi, basically all the areas that they still have mountain gorillas. And a lot of our work was farming based. It was building small schoolhouses. It was delivering basic medical care and treatment, and trying to raise it to a standard where they could actually survive. I mean, I would love to say it was more than that. I would love to say thrive, but with our limited resources and what we had available, it was more just giving them the opportunity to at least exist somewhat comfortably. Maybe not by most Western standards. It wouldn't be a comfortable life, but certainly a step up from where they were. So trying to assimilate them into normal Rwandan culture. So I didn't get to work hands-on with gorillas. That's a pretty specific field. I got to see them a few times.
That's awesome.
Hiking up into the park.
Took some treks.
I took some treks. Yeah, and that was a very eye-opening experience, to say the least. It some pretty traumatic things that I had to see and had to.
Do you want to share any of those?
Probably not in too much depth.
Okay, yeah.
Stuff I like to really rehash too much, but just extreme poverty to a level that I don't think exists many places, and just I don't know if I'd call them like human right crimes, 'cause it's not necessarily a crime, but just there's some pretty heartbreaking stuff. What these people were living through. So I like to think that we made somewhat of a difference there, help some people's lives, and at the same time, it is in order to protect the forest and the gorillas, and give them the opportunity to not go into the park and chop down trees and go poach animals or gorillas, whatever it is. So yeah, it was kind of like an all-inclusive conservation project. After that, I came back to the States for a little bit, was working some random jobs up in Alaska, tour guide, mountain bike tour guide, and just kind of random stuff. And I had fallen in love with Southeast Asia after working with the Orangutan Foundation. I traveled around for a few months, and yeah, I went to Laos and I fell in love with the place. I mean, Southeast Asia has been like a tourist hotspot destination for about decades and decades. So, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia to some extent, they're all very well traveled. It's not and it's changed the culture in those countries, I think, pretty significantly. There's a lot more Western influence, a lot more of the travel experience is catered towards Western comforts. It's not you go to Thailand and I feel like oftentimes you meet one of the locals and they're smiling at you because they know it's good for their economy. They know it's money's coming in. Whereas I think Laos has remained off that beaten path for travelers, and the smiles are still genuine. They're still like, "Oh my God, you want to come and see our country?" They're like so excited
Amazing.
to meet like a foreigner who's they want to talk, they want to like. So it still remained like, it still kind of has its core essence, its traditional like styles. And yeah, went to an elephant sanctuary there, and it was just awful. All the elephants on short chains are the ones that weren't, whole families on their back, and they just do these repetitive, little loops with the elephants and the hot sun, and whole families on their backs. And they weren't rescuing the elephants. They were turning a profit, like bringing through tourism, and it was all very disingenuous and heartbreaking, to say the least. So I didn't have experience with elephants before, but I really wanted to get out of the US. I wanted to kind of start my own project, and that was kind of eye-opening. It's like, there's certainly, this can be done in a much better way, a way that's actually good for the elephants. And that's kind of what spurred me and one of my really good buddies to start investigating. We spent, I don't know, 6 months traveling the country and looking for land and making contacts and figuring out the legalities of opening a project there. It's a pretty strict communist government still,
Yeah, that's actually one of my big questions. Like, if you wouldn't mind diving into that a little more, how did you do that? How long did it take?
So we ended up meeting this gentleman, a German guy who'd been living in Laos for 15, 20 years. He'd opened up a couple of guest houses, a restaurant, spoke the language fluently, had good contacts, and we kind of hit it off with him. And he was excited to meet two younger guys who were interested in creating like a new project. So he was like, "Yeah, let's do this together. Let's build." So he kind of like got us the fast line into procuring business licenses and foreign work permits, and helping us find land and dealing with all of those issues that we really didn't have any experience with.
Mm-hmm.
So he definitely helped us move things along quite quickly. I won't go into it too much depth, but it became apparent like kind of right when we were opening up that his primary focus was making as much money as possible and didn't care so much about the elephants themselves. So our relationship ended fairly quickly after it started. So he's no longer part of the
Did you
organization
have to
at all.
like buy his portion of the business? Is that how you were able to like cut ties?
Yeah. So we bought him out of the company. One of my other really good friends who grew up here in Colorado as well was able to purchase his shares.
Oh wow.
And he's over there now, kind of overseeing things, but he's been with us for 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. So it's kind of like I guess I consider them my family, like
Yeah.
couple of my best friends. So it's like a little family business now. But yeah, I mean, it's the government is open. They want to increase like economic revenue coming through the country, so they are open to foreign investment and having people come in and things that will draw on more tourists. So that part isn't exactly the most difficult, but it's our concept of what we want to do with elephants, and it's significantly different than what's traditionally done with elephants in Laos. So that's really where the fighting has begun, or the challenges have. We can get into this in a little bit more, but the training aspect with our baby bull, we had letters from the Prime Minister's office that we had to send him down for traditional training and breaking process. It was a legal requirement. Even though we owned him, it was our elephant. Of course, we refused, but that's, stuff like that. And they didn't really understand the concept of doing something for the elephants. I think they thought we were just some random Westerners coming in who wanted to do something different. They didn't understand the concept of treating elephants ethically. And now that we've started doing it, in some ways it sheds bad light onto all of the other elephant stuff that's going on. So it's raised tensions that they're almost like coming at us saying that, like, because we're doing this, it's saying that they're doing it the wrong way. So we've been faced with some backlash at that manner.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely get into that because I can see how that. I mean, anybody who's breaking norms and big changers, they're always going to face some resistance, and I'm sure you've seen tons. But before we get into that, let's take it back a step. So how did you acquire the land that you're on? Let's talk more about Mandalao itself. So
Yeah.
what is the facility that you've put together? How did you get your elephants? And then what are the interactions or the tourist encounters that you have put together?
For sure. So our land is kind of divided into 3 separate parcels. So we technically, as a foreigner within Laos, only Lao nationals can purchase land. So we found a place where we wanted to build kind of our restaurant and like greeting area for guests. So all of our tours involve, coffee and an introduction in the morning and lunch back at the restaurant. So that's kind of like our main hub. So we do own that land. It's in one of my good Lao friends' names, and we have a 50-year rental contract with him. The rest of it, we got probably about 50, maybe 75 hectares of land that we rented directly from the village. So we sign off, I think it's every 3 years, we renew the contract, and it's just, village land. So primarily forested and nice grazing, eating grounds for the elephants, and where we do a lot of our treks with the elephants, walk through the paths up there. And then probably, and this is one of our biggest headaches, but we had to rent the rest of the land from local villagers. So we probably have, 30 different contracts with trails and, little parcels of land that we've pieced together into this big area. So yeah, one privately owned, the rest village rented, and then the other rented from all these different villagers. So that was quite challenging. But so when people come to Luang Prabang, for the most part, travelers, they want to see Luang Prabang. It's the ancient capital. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's this little peninsula in between the Nam Khan River and the Mekong River. And it's this French colonial architecture mixed with, I'm going to forget the exact number, 13 or something, ancient Buddhist temples.
Oh my gosh, this sounds amazing.
Yeah, super mountainous. Like it's gorgeous, and it's just got it's really own unique vibe and style to it. So it's the main tourist destination in Laos. And most people that come to Laos, they really just fly up from Thailand. They'll fly directly to Luang Prabang. They'll spend 3 days there, and that's their experience in Laos. It's a pretty hard country to travel in general if you don't have a lot of time, and if you're, not willing to spend, 10 hours, 12 hours on a bumpy, hot bus ride to get somewhere. It's not for a lot of travelers. So we wanted to do something close to Luang Prabang, where we know most of the tourism comes through that area. So we're about 30 minutes outside, found this gorgeous area. I mean, surrounded by mountains, right on the rivers, perfect for the elephants. And yeah, still, when most people have 3 days there, if we do like a half day, a full day, we can, take them away from 1 day from the city to come and experience our project. So that was one of our keys in looking for area. Yeah, and I used to starting about our program. So we kind of picked the area first, and, elephants are like any creature. They need exercise. So we figured out we've got a handful of different trails and trail systems that we go through. But for the most part, we want the elephants to walk at least 5 kilometers a day. Even when we have no guests, the elephants still go out and take this walk. They can't just sit there and eat food.
Hang out.
Yeah. So there's this gorgeous little stream called Hoi Nok, right by our place. That's kind of one of our main trail systems. We walk up the creek and it's nice and cool and shaded. The elephants always have water, so there's tons of food around there. So they're grazing like the whole time. So we kind of started with that and then figured in the second piece, which would be tourists, and honestly gave a lot less consideration to them. Wanted it to be for the elephants first, like a place where they were comfortable, plenty of food, nice habitat, just let them tear down trees and be elephants, eat bamboo, and it basically would just let the guests walk behind the elephants. Yeah, we have some special boots that we provide because it gets pretty muddy. There's plenty of leeches and bugs and mosquitoes and stuff out there, but it's it's a jungle trek, so it's not it's not too steep or anything, but it's you have to be the right person for it. You have to be ready to go out into the jungle and get muddy and get some mosquitoes on you, and be in the elephant's habitat. So yeah, we do half day tours, which is pick you up in town. Our guides will, and yeah, about a 30-minute van ride out to the property. Our guides will they're all just absolutely amazing, all from Laos, and I've been working with elephants for countless years, know tons about it, know tons about the area. Give you kind of an introduction on the drive out. And our elephant master, who helped us found it, Prasop Tiprasert, he started the Thai Elephant Conservation Center in 1989, which was the year that Thailand outlawed the use of elephants for logging. So there was a huge influx of captive elephants with no work, nothing to do. So the government actually propositioned Persop to build a facility, to build a new industry for elephants that were now out of work. And that was kind of the basis for elephant tourism as we see it today within Southeast Asia. So he created that in 1989. He's been working with elephants for, I think even before that, maybe 10 or 15 years. And he knows more about them than just about anyone on planet Earth. So he had actually just retired after I met him, and told him our plans to open this and call it like a green elephant camp in Laos. And he got so excited and came to join us. So he loves nothing more than talking about elephants and just being involved. So get out to the property and coffee and tea, whatever, and he'll give like a 45-minute talk on their conservation status, on the work that we're doing, on elephant behaviors, and pretty much like all of the aspects of what our project is trying to contribute to give guests a sense of the scope of our work. And then cross the river. So our restaurant's on one side of the Mekong, and then the elephants are all on the opposite side. So cross the river with baskets of bananas and do a meet and greet. We keep the groups really small. Maximum is 6 people, always with 2 elephants. They don't like to be alone. We don't want to overwhelm the elephants. We want it to be a personal experience for the guests as well. So yeah, that first interaction is, and the elephants know it. They're used to the routine. So when they're coming down, they know there's 2 baskets of bananas just waiting for them. So they come trotting down the trail full speed. They're ready for their morning treats. And then after that, it's just following them through the jungle. I think our half day, is about 3 kilometers round trip, and come back and have lunch at the restaurant, say goodbyes to the elephants with another basket of bananas. Maybe do some swimming in the river. Well, if the elephants want to. We don't let the guests go in with the elephants or participate in the bathing process. We just let the elephants really, it's their decision if they want to go in and splash around. Yeah, and then the full day heads out another 4 kilometers, and we do like a local Lao style lunch out in the jungle. So it's just a more extended period with the elephants. Yeah, it's really simple. It's basically just meet the elephants and let them walk. And it's been pretty amazing to see how the elephants have shown their appreciation after, spending, I guess this would segue into the next one, is the original 5 elephants we got all came directly from the logging industry, which is slowly dying in Laos. Technically, it's illegal as of like 2 years ago, but people still do it.
Illegal.
Exactly. So yeah, we went down to one of the logging camps, spoke with the owners, and were able to get 4 adult females and 1 6-month-old baby boy. Him and his mother came together. So they were pretty skeptical at the start, but yeah, convinced them it was a good place. So we brought the elephants up, and they were very, very different animals. They're used to being controlled with force, hooks and hammers. They're used to hard work. They're used to really no medical attention. They're used to lack of food, lack of water. So when they came to us, it was like this kind of paradise, but they were all terrified. I couldn't even really approach one of the elephants. They'd get scared. If you move a hand quickly, you could see their eyes just close. You could tell they'd been abused, and it took some time, but not too long. But within a couple of months, they were just completely different creatures, just so relaxed. I mean, an elephant, you can tell by kind of like their body movements, just flapping ears, their tails swinging back and forth. You can tell when they're relaxed and like comfortable, and they'd start approaching you, and it was just a completely different atmosphere. So you could tell they appreciated the change in their lifestyle and coming to us. And now they're just spoiled rotten.
Thinking little baskets of bananas.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we started. And then as we started getting more, so we're primarily funded through the tourists that we bring out to the property. We never do like loops with the elephants. It's just one group of elephants. We'll go out with one group of people for the day, and then they're done. We're not like doing circles. We have a very limited number of people that we bring out every day. But once we started getting some recognition and people really wanted to come to see us, before the pandemic, I think we were pretty much booked out like 6 months to a year in advance.
Wow.
So it was working. So we actually, we're certainly never going to make much money off of it, but we had enough where we kept going out and rescuing more elephants, and we were up to 13 rescues, and just, had people coming through. And yeah, unfortunately with COVID-19, we'll get into that in a little bit, but without that revenue being generated, it's incredibly hard to care for elephants, certainly in the way that we set out to care for them. So 8 of the elephants that we had actually ended up going back to their home province to live with back in their villages that they came from. We can still go down and do vet checks and check on them at any time. And as soon as we get some revenue coming back through, we plan to bring them all back. But that's been pretty heartbreaking to not have them with us. But yeah, I don't know if that answered anything.
No, it did. And I think one thing to clarify too. So how many of these elephants do you own versus how you said they go back to their home province? So does Mandalao essentially rent them and house them? Or what is that relationship with a lot of the elephants that you rescue?
So the majority we do rent. We own 2 of them. One was donated to us, and then we purchased the baby boy. He's really the focal point of our elephant reintroduction program back to the wilds. We talk about that more as well. But yeah, so in a perfect world, we would have been able to just purchase all of the elephants outright. That would take a lot of capital that we just don't have. So yeah, it's pretty commonplace to rent elephants from their families, the people that own them. And sometimes it's, 3 or 4 families that own one elephant. And there can be some positives and negatives to it. I mean, obviously the negatives being they're not our elephants. We can't make sure that they're going to stay with us forever. If the owners change their mind, it's their elephant. They can take it back. So we sign 5-year rental agreements that they are to stay with us for that 5 years at the minimum, unless we extend it or sign another contract. It does have some positives. It's especially in a culture it's a very poor country. So, when you own an elephant, if we were to just buy it, say it's $30,000 for a female, most likely they probably are not going to make the best decisions with that money. And even if they live in, a little village, have, really no other sources of income, you could very well see them just going out and buying a brand new truck with that $30,000. or buying another elephant and propagating the cycle of the captive elephant trade, which we also don't want to do. And, they might not even have gas to put in the truck. So we pay on average, it's around $800 per month rent for the elephants. And it actually works out pretty well for the families because, that's enough to send their kids to school. It's enough to work on their farms. It's enough to, do basic upkeep on their house, put food on the table. So it's kind of a sustainable set money for them going into the future where, I worry that they would, buy another elephant or buy a truck if we just gave like the full amount at once. So certainly the ones that we're going to reintroduce back to the wild, we're going to have to purchase because I don't think any of the owners would be too happy if we just let them go.
Go through a whole rewilding project. Just so you know, in about a couple years, your elephant is going to be wild. FYI.
So that's a challenge we'll come to here in the future. But one was donated to us by Planting Peace, a nonprofit based out of the States here. And she is absolutely darling. Maycom, she's one of my favorites. I know I'm not supposed to have favorites, but they all have their individual personalities. Some of them are kind of butthead. The other ones are really sweet. Some are just kind of antisocial and quiet. Some are, just always in your face, just, wanting attention or wanting treats, just, a little bit overbearing. But so we own 2 at this point, and we'll see how that progresses in the future.
I think it would be really cool if you could talk about it a little bit more. You chatted about this the other night, and I would really love to bring it up. So anyone that's listening to this podcast, or most people who are, Americans or Western society, we view elephants very differently. Just because we just love them. They're beautiful creatures. They deserve these good lives. They're so intelligent. How does the local community view elephants? So with the difference in how they're being treated with you, versus whatever the norm is. Could you really go into that and just the differences about how we might see these elephants versus just local culture?
Absolutely. So Lao is known, the historical name is Lao Lan Song. Lan means million and Song means elephant. So it's the land of a million elephants. So it's deeply rooted in their culture. And you'll even hear kids still call it Lao Lan Song today. It's the land of a million elephants. But so culturally, they play a big part. You see all of the temples, buildings, names of restaurants, everything has elephants in it. When it comes to actually their interactions with elephants, that's when it starts to change, with actual living elephants. And in that sense, I think really the traditional kind of view there is their livestock. It's not much different than a water buffalo or a cow or whatnot. The elephants are used for timber logging and timber export. They're animals for use, and I think that goes back for centuries, if not longer. So it's a difference between a Western society or other places might see this incredibly intelligent, unique, amazing creature that deserves all of this extra respect because of what they are. Whereas I think to the Lao people, it is still very much just an animal that is to be used for, practical purposes that can help out, help out humans. I don't think with some of our staff, our guides, the ones that are, more well educated, they can understand the difference between what we're doing and another, say riding camp that's nearby us that's primarily based to, Chinese tour groups that just want a 15-minute ride that, is not focused on the elephant's well-being or whatnot. So some people do get that, but for the most part, I don't think most people understand most Lao people don't understand the difference between what we're trying to do and what the camp right next to us is trying to do. They see we have customers, they're like, oh, well, these, travelers want to come in and walk through the jungle and just stare at an elephant, and that's fine. But I don't think they think about it on a much deeper level than that. And just with animal welfare, really in general within Laos, it's very different than most more developed countries, ideas of it. I mean, dogs running around stray, they'll feed them, they're kind of pet dogs, but they're not allowed in the house. You know, they're not going to go up and like pet a dog and give it love or anything. And chickens and, you know, little pigs, like it's just running through the villages. It's just waiting to get eaten, basically. So they don't have that affection for animals like we do. And so I think that's very much cultural as well. And I think it but also like ties into just the training process with the elephants and what we've had to battle with our baby elephant, because he's been raised on positive reinforcement, but you know, they're seeing it as, no, we're the livestock department and this animal is the same as a water buffalo, and it's meant to be used to benefit humans, and it needs to be trained in this manner. Yeah, so there's a respect for elephants there. People certainly have. I guess another piece to the puzzle is when you're talking about wild elephants, and certainly, you know, there's not many of them left there, but Nampui National Biodiversity Conservation Area, where we plan to work and reintroduce some elephants, there's still a lot of human-elephant conflict. So the villagers living on the outskirts of this park, it's still very common that the elephants come out of the park, raid their crops. You know, it's a couple times a year, either, you know, an elephant's killed or a few villagers are killed. You know, they're trying to protect their livelihood, protecting their farms. You can't fault them for that. In many other countries, you look at Thailand, it's an issue there as well. The government actually has money to reimburse the farmers for the crops that are destroyed. There's no sort of program like that in Laos to, help people out after an elephant's destroyed. So to a lot of, you know, the villagers living in those areas, these elephants are nuisances. You know, they want them gone. They'd be just as happy if, you know, all the wild population just disappeared. So, there's a big difference between captive and wild. And I mean, I would say in captivity, they're still pretty rare in captivity. I mean, they say 500 to 1,000 elephants left in Laos, and that's both wild and captive. I think there's probably about 300 captive, and probably less than 200 wild. From all the people I've talked to, like the best estimates. But a lot of people, especially if you grow up, you know, in the Wampagong or Vientiane, like one of the big cities, a lot of these people have never seen an elephant before, like an actual live elephant. So we bring out like student groups and classes and monks from the monasteries, and they're all, you know, super excited to see elephants, terrified.
Understandably, they're big creatures.
Yeah, so I think while elephants are deeply rooted within the culture, they're still kind of an enigma to most Lao people. They're still almost like a foreign concept. Like most people don't have like real hands-on experience with them. So it's a bit of a disconnect between what it means to the Lao people and what is actually happening to them and how they're being treated.
Yeah. I think this would then be the perfect segue. So you mentioned it briefly a moment ago. So it sounds like the way you are now treating elephants and starting this new ethically way of, you know, taking care of them is starting to maybe ruffle some feathers. I would love if you dove into that a little bit more. What is starting to happen now? Maybe some conflict between you and maybe just culturally speaking, or with how you're saying like, hey, this is actually how you're supposed to treat elephants.
Yeah, we've seen some positives and negatives. You know, the camp closest to us, I'm not sure how many elephants they have now, but there is a growing market for tourists who want to experience elephants in an ethical way. I think it's becoming more like kind of common knowledge that, you know, riding them or being in a place that doesn't really care for the elephants it's almost becoming taboo for a lot of Western travelers, which is a really good thing. So I think, you know, at the start, we got popular pretty quick. And I think a lot of the other camps around us resented us because it was taking away from, you know, their revenue from the guests coming to them. So they all hated us, you know. So there was no chance of like working, like collaborating with any other elephant projects or anything. We were kind of isolated and, you know, shunned that we were these bad guys. Since then, yeah, the elephant camp closest to us has gone full non-riding.
Wow, really?
Yeah, in an effort to try and get back some of the consumerism, which is great. It's actually becoming a bit of an issue. We see it a lot in Thailand that people are using not riding elephants is it's almost like greenwashing. They say, "Oh, we don't ride elephants, so we're ethical." And it's a lot more than just not riding your elephants. But to a lot of travelers, it's hard to kind of see through those lines. We're working on a documentary right now that we'll hopefully have released in the next 6 months or so that is really kind of an educational experience so people know the right questions to ask, know what to look for when deciding to go visit a certain elephant project.
That is going to be so valuable.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, definitely keep me in the loop on that because I want to shout that to the freaking world.
Yeah, it's really tough if you're not familiar with elephants or if you want to call it an industry, I guess it is. It's hard to see through those lines, asking whether or not do you have a vet? Are they a trained medical professional or is it just someone who what's their diet consist of? How long, do you train them? Are they isolated from one another? Can they socialize? How much exercise do they get? All sorts of stuff. So it's not just the non-riding piece, but it is a good piece. It's a great step. So it's nice to see people kind of following our lead on that. So it is a step forward for that camp to do that. As far as the backlash goes, yeah, I mean, I think it really, I keep going back to, well, I'll take it back a step. So every year they hold the Lao, what do they call it? It's just like the Elephant Festival down in Saibury, which is where most of the logging elephants are. It's a province in Laos. And, traditionally it's meant to explain to the Lao people the importance of elephants within culture, talk about, their endangered status. But in more recent years, it's really just become like an auction house for, the Chinese people coming in who want to buy these elephants illegally and bring them across the border. But yeah, so technically the elephants, even if you own them, they're still property of the Lao government. They still own, Lao still owns them. So this elephant festival is a horrible, horrible place. I hope this doesn't get spread to anyone like in Lao or the Lao government because I'd get in a lot of trouble for saying that. But, they pack in all of these elephants, 100, 150 to the small fairgrounds area. No trees, burning hot sun. There's piles of trash, all the elephants on short chains. They do short rides. They do a show with fireworks and stuff, and it's awful. So they have always wanted us to send our elephants down to this festival to participate, which we've never wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite of, what we think elephants should be doing. So, that's created a lot of backlash from the government itself. Like, why won't you put this is a Lao national pride thing? This is what the Lao country wants to do to help showcase elephants. And we're like, no, it's not our thing. So we've had to pay a lot of money not to send our elephants, and not like under the table bribes or anything, but the government will come up with a different answer and they're going to be like, oh, well, if you won't send us, 6 elephants, then we have to find them somewhere else, and you have to pay for all of their transport for them to live there for a week. So, $5,000 or $10,000, we'll have to hand them the money. And who knows if they really even do find other elephants to replace ours, or if they just pocket the money. But yeah, so, and that's really a big thing with the training of our baby, because there aren't too many baby elephants left in Laos. There hasn't been too much captive breeding. So they want him to go down, and the baby elephants you see there, they're spinning hula hoops on their trunks. They're, standing up. They're doing like, what is that? Like a curtsy when you like bow down. They're doing these tricks, right? And they're all dressed up. So they have been adamant they want him to get the traditional training so he can do all of those tricks and go down there for it. And, we got letters from Prime Minister's office, from all of these people, big red government stamps, signatures. He was even stolen from us at one point. Got him back like 2 days later. It was the worst. Him and his mother were taken from us in the middle of the night. And he was on his way to go get traditionally trained. And also found out later that his current owner at that time had a deal set in place with someone who was going to be bringing him across the border to China, and he was going to be worth upwards of like $300,000. We got him back, fortunately enough, and just through a bunch of red tape, we brought in our own trainers. Like, I've been training him for 5 years, and we were able to move past that. But that's most of the backlash has come from the government and just like our not being willing to cooperate with their sense of what we should be doing with our elephants. So it's not so much them fighting us and saying, oh no, you can't just have your project and walk with the elephants and let the elephants be elephants. Like, they're fine with that. It's more just us not conforming towards what they want to see us do with the elephants outside of our project. And so it's created some challenges.
I bet. And one of the other challenges that you mentioned, and you've brought it up a couple small times, but I really would love for you to go into it further. China. I always feel like China is just always in these conversations for some reason. Well, there's reasons. But talk about that a little bit more. Why does China want these elephants? And what is that doing for you on the possibility of purchasing any of these elephants and you keeping them? So, like, how is all of this full circle and what this issue is now?
Yeah, certainly. So once an elephant crosses into China, they're primarily used for, they're entertainment purposes. So they're either going to circuses, they're going to amusement parks, they're going to kind of roadside, just tourist attractions for rides, some drive-through safari parks. But in general, the idea is you want that elephant to be, another reason they wanted to train our baby is so he can do tricks. And, babies are worth more because, if you look at an asset, an elephant might live 60 years, kept in relatively like good condition within captivity. You get more profit if it's young. If they get him when he's 3 years old, they basically pencil in 50 years of making money off the animal. So yeah, crossing the border, they're super valuable. And it's just for entertainment purposes. Yeah, I think I'm blanking out on.
No, you're good. And how then that's now like a thing that you have to contend with.
Yeah. Well, it's changed the entire like value, like the market value for an elephant within Laos. We ended up having to pay an extraordinary amount to keep our baby elephant, way more than what traditionally would have been market value within Laos. So, and the biggest issue is, so we share the northern border of Laos is borders China, and there's the border crossing town is called Botan. And it's not legal under CITES, the Convention on the International Trade of Endangered Species. You can't issue permits to, move elephants across international borders. But you can make fake permits, and you can give the border crossing guys a little bit of money, and those elephants can just walk across, pretty hassle-free. So it's, in large part, the government is part of the accessory. They're getting paid off to allow these elephants to move. So while none of it's being done legally, it's hard to fight the government because they could easily just come and shut us down if they wanted to. So you have to be pretty tight-lipped about what's going on. It's not like we can just hop on any media platform and start trying to expose this without risking
everything you've built.
Yeah. So that's a major challenge. The biggest thing is just, the price of elephants. Like, if we want to go out, if we wanted to buy, these 8 elephants, it's going to cost us a lot more. Whereas, when even 6 or 7 years ago when I moved there, the going rate for a middle-aged female, they're worth a little bit more if they've had one baby before. The first baby can often be a little bit more risky, whether or not it's going to survive or not. And if it's an older elephant, getting into its 30s or so, and it hasn't had a baby before, the risk becomes exponentially higher. So a female that's had 1 or 2 babies that's, in her 20s, is going to be worth more than, a 30-year-old that's never had a baby. But yeah, $25,000 to $35,000, depending on the elephant. And now, people are asking $50,000, $60,000 for an elephant. So When you're talking about buying 8 of them or however many, can only afford 4 of those if you're playing like 30,000.
I was gonna say you're easily that they're going for like 60K for your what you have. Like, you're easily gonna be up until like $500,000 just to even think about having your own.
Yeah, and then that doesn't even include, the salaries for the mahouts. Mahouts being their caretakers. Normally, each elephant that we have 2 mahouts because, they need time off. People get sick. If one of the mahouts decides he needs to leave or go back and take care of his family, whatever the reason might be, elephants get imprinted on the people they work with. They develop really strong relationships. So even someone who's worked with elephants their whole lives, I mean, I guess it's dependent on every elephant. Some elephants are really easy. Some you could just swap in a new mahout and it would be fine. Some really only have like one mahout that they'll like listen to, that they feel comfortable with. So we want to always have 2 just in case that sometimes, Maycom, the one that was donated to us, she's been with her mahout for almost 30 years, maybe 27 years. His name is Yacht. I don't know. Piece of work. Drives me insane. He's pushes all boundaries on what it takes to not get fired. But,
Also dealing with humans too.
his relationship with that elephant, it's really hard for anyone else to work with that elephant. He's almost like tenured in, and he knows that, so he takes advantage of it because he's almost impossible to replace. So we do always have like, the one mahout that's been working with the elephant for an extended period. We bring in another mahout that can, work with that long tenured mahout and get to know the elephant really well, so we can, and it's much more comfortable for the elephants. For the most part, they don't want just some random person coming in and telling them what to do. Yeah, but so on top of the price of the elephants, I mean, everything in Laos is getting more expensive as well. I think every place in the world, just inflation is increasing. So salaries are higher, the cost of food for all of the elephants, our medical bills, the cost for the land, the cost for, office rentals and stuff, so we can actually bring people out there. So all of those costs add up. So beyond just buying the elephants, it's incredibly expensive to keep them as well. So if you're talking about $500,000 to buy these elephants, then you're also, we're talking about, a few $100,000 a year on top of that just to be able to take care of them. So it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I need Jeff Bezos or somebody to just buy all the elephants in Laos and us out. But it's so prices are going up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess this might be the perfect time then to talk about COVID. So COVID has hit everybody around the world hard, and I feel that even the poorer countries, it has hit even harder. And having been in the tourism sector, I mean, I lost my job, but luckily for me, I just lost my job. There's so many people that have experienced so much worse. And I know that you have seen some really, just awful stuff because of COVID. So what has it done for Mandalao and for you?
It's been an incredibly difficult stretch here for us. Yeah, Laos stopped issuing foreign tourist visas in March of 2020. And again, that's really, we do some grant writing and, we have some outside funding that comes in. But primarily it's through the revenue generated by tourists that we're able to run Mandalao and take care of these elephants in this way. So, without that, we've been hit pretty hard. I guess no one saw COVID coming. Some hindsight, maybe should have anticipated something, but we didn't have the resources like enough saved up or backed up to be like, oh, we can just go without any customers for 2 years. So that really led to us. Originally we thought, oh, well, maybe the borders will be closed for a couple of months, and then it was 6 months, and we're like, oh, maybe a few months longer. And we had all 13 elephants for the majority of that year. So I think they all went back the very end of 2020, or the 8 of them went back. And it was just, we couldn't afford the salaries for the mahouts and all of the food and the medical treatment. And Actually, a lot of our elephant owners wanted to breed their elephants, and not it, we're not into breeding for the sake of keeping elephants in captivity. So we don't do any on-site breeding unless it's strictly for the purpose of reintroduction. But it was kind of an opportunity where they know that about us in Mandalao. So like, okay, if you let us bring the elephants back to our village, they all want to breed because, you know, to them, I don't mean this as a fault to them, but a baby elephant is worth a lot of money. So yeah, they took them back. So it does probably mean that when these elephants come back to us, we'll have, you know, at least a handful of them that are pregnant. And then we'll open up the whole conversation of how we can purchase those baby elephants so we can use them for reintroduction. But yeah, there's 6 elephant camps around the Luang and they're all Lao owned. And they have been hit the absolute hardest. So we started with our Denver-based nonprofit, our one that we work with, the Lao Elephant Initiative, to create a Feed the Elephants campaign. So we went and assessed all 6 camps, figured out which ones were in most need, which elephants were in most need, and have been feeding 44 different elephants consistently since then. And when we got there, it was heartbreaking. They didn't have the staff, the mahouts, to even take them down to get water. They weren't really feeding them anything. I mean, they were starving to death. I mean, you don't have to be an expert to see, like, on this
I'm just
picture.
seeing those photos that you shared with us. Like I'm that one where it's like pulling on the chain. Like I'm vividly seeing that one.
Yeah, I mean, shoulder blades sticking out,
Yeah,
spines,
hip bones.
ribs. So we started doing that and working with local farmers to, produce and grow all the food for them. And we've seen some pretty significant changes, and those elephants are actually looking a lot better than we were. We're paying for mahout salaries to actually look after them. But, you know, who knows how long this is going to last for. It's, supposedly Thailand's going to open up its borders in October, regardless of the risk, to vaccinated travelers. I would hope that Laos would follow suit, like close after that. But Laos is still in lockdown. It's even hard to travel from province to province right now. So we don't really know. And even if the borders were to just magically reopen, how long is it going to be before, you know, the numbers of tourists start coming back, and that actually, you know, makes up the difference and can actually get back to a point where we were pre-pandemic. So right now we're struggling to raise the funds to, you know, not only take care of our elephants, but, you know, support the camps around us. And not support the camps. We would never directly just hand one of the camp owners money or anything. Just chances are, you know, it's that cultural thing where, you know, you go to one of these camps, the elephants are starving, but, you know, the owner of the camp is still driving his, you know, nice truck and is still in nice clothes, and they don't look at it the same as us. They're like, oh, well, you know, elephants don't have money, so they're not really going to eat food right now. So we're pretty much avoiding dealing with like the owners themselves and just focus directly on bringing food, bringing veterinary care, and working with the elephants. So yeah, it's been really challenging, and our main goal, and I think we'll get into this in a bit, but the ecotourism project, bringing people to see wild elephants and be part of our elephant reintroduction program, has been totally put on halt because of this as well. I mean, it's hard to travel in between provinces. It's a lot of the government offices have been opened and closed, depending on like the restrictions that are in place from time to time. So yeah, everything's kind of just stalled. All of our forward momentum has just been put on pause, and now it's just kind of become survival mode.
So right now the main way that you're keeping your doors open is like through grants and donations and stuff?
Yeah.
And if anyone listening would have something to give, what is the best way? So you said that there's a Denver nonprofit. Is that the best way to give through, or directly to Mandalao, or what's the best way?
We have a few different ways. Yeah, the Lao Elephant Initiative is our nonprofit based out of here in Denver. They also do other projects as well, not specifically just for Mandalao and our Feed the Elephants campaign. So if anyone was to decide to make a contribution to them, you need to just kind of specify that you would want the money to go to Mandalao and Feed the Elephants campaign. Otherwise, it might get dispersed in different areas. But if it is specified, then yeah, it comes directly to our project. We do also have GoFundMe just on our website, mandalaotours.com, that we're raising funds on. I know GoFundMe is not exactly the best. They do take, I believe it's like 3%, which is a major bummer. But it's having all of our bank accounts in Laos, it can be pretty challenging for people to make, even if it's a $5 donation, whatever, to transfer that all the way overseas. So we decided to use that as our platform. So those are probably the two best. And then the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund, they just launched a fundraising campaign for us as well, and Feed the Elephants. So if you go to their website, they're also a nonprofit. Any of those donations will come directly back to us as well.
Yeah. Everyone listening, you know Dave. Dave of KCF. And if you haven't, go listen to episode 2 because he is the bomb.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's the one that hosted the fundraiser the other day and all proceeds from the fundraiser went directly to you. So,
Yep.
And yeah, it was a very moving fundraiser. So hopefully the people there were like, yes, let me help Michael with this.
Yeah, and I mean, also just on top of that, I realized after, I just said we have no idea when the borders are really going to open and things are going to get back to normal. But, if people want to contribute, come out and see us. Come up, like, tourism plays a huge role in conservation and what we're able to do. And sometimes people think, well, the concept of sustainable travel doesn't really make sense. You're hopping in a plane, all those carbon emissions, all of the waste, all of your food, like, it just seems like that's not sustainable. But really, projects like ours and many others around the world, they're fully based off the revenue generated through tourism. So pick the lesser of two evils, but some carbon emissions versus showing a government that we need to protect these animals. They're actually valuable. And I hate to think about elephants and money together. I guess it's more of a Western concept, but like the intrinsic value within just protecting an animal should just be inherent, but it's not in most places in the world. They need to see the cash value, and that's what tourism does. So without it, the animals suffer. So yeah, when things open back up, like, please come see us.
Yes.
Like, come
Oh, we're
hang out with
coming.
elephants.
We're coming. I already have another Nepal trip that I need to go do to go see red pandas and snow leopards.
Nice.
And then go to Kathmandu, and then we'll just hop on over.
There you go. For
And I'm
sure.
sure Dave and Ray and Chuck will be with me too. Oh, hi, baby. Oh, hi. Do you like being a part of the conversation too? She's loving this right now. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
You have anything to add?
Yeah, do you want to say anything? Do you approve? Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's like, I'm just going to sleep and enjoy.
I'm putting her to sleep. It's not entertaining.
No, if she was really bored, she'd be in the back room. She's totally enjoying all of this right now.
Okay.
But when it comes to tourism, that's why I'm such a big advocate for it, and why when I made my big career shift to sustainable conservation travel, is because it is one of the only industries in the world that puts direct dollar value on alive and thriving wildlife and nature.
Yeah.
There are very few, if any, other sectors or industries that directly place value on nature and wildlife. Because it is about money. It really truly is. It is about money. That is the way the world works. And as much as we wish it was all about butterflies and rainbows and roses and just good feelings, that's not the way the world works. It is about money. And so to take advantage of that and put it to our use, ecotourism, giving people this amazing experience that then supports these elephants and then shows a whole entire country that you can do it different.
Absolutely.
You can do it sustainably. You can do it where these elephants have a good life. And this is how. We will show you how it's done. And maybe even start a movement in the process. With a lot of hard things along the way. There's nothing easy about anything that I just said, but...
For sure. But no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's one of the key cogs in the puzzle. It's a main piece towards certainly, not just with, captive. I think you're talking about just the broader scope of conservation, not just with animals in captivity, but, conservation of wild species as well. And that's kind of our next big step is really going to be to put
Let's
that
go
on
into
our-
that.
Yeah, so here, Nampui National Biodiversity Conservation Area. No national parks in Laos. They just have it's a really long name for some reason. But yeah, they still have about 80 wild elephants there. We've been working with WWF Laos. They've been there in the park for 12 years, maybe. Yeah, and just this core zone of the park that we have mapped out, and it's gorgeous, beautiful. That Nampoon River comes through, massive old growth trees, perfect elephant habitats. I mean, bears, leopards, clouded leopards, white-handed gibbons, like all sorts of wildlife that you don't see much of in Laos anymore. It's one of the few like main pockets that's left, but it's it's a protected area, but it's not really protected. Without the WWF Laos being there, there'd be really like no protection at all. But they don't even have the resources to be able to fully protect the area. They've got 2 patrol teams that go out. They have their camera traps and stuff, but it's not nearly enough.
How big is this area?
It's just over 100,000 square hectares.
And they have 2 patrol teams.
Yeah. So they
And this isn't savannah. This isn't flat, open grasslands, right?
no, it's mostly steep mountains and thick forest. Wow. So yeah, the goal would be to get some sort of a concession or a right from the government to set up our own patrol teams, like work with the WWF Laos, since they have a lot more experience there than we do. But we've identified a few different salt licks the elephants come to most every night. Build big viewing platforms up above, because you don't want to be on the ground when some wild elephants come walking through the jungle. So where we can safely observe the elephants without distracting them as well. We don't want to interfere with their kind of like normal behaviors. Guests could go out with the patrol teams and set up and check wildlife camera traps, measure and monitor tracks and like different animal signs that they see along the way, and build like an eco lodge there, so people could spend a few nights within the park in this gorgeous area, and really show the government, well, okay, there's money to be made here. Like, you could go through and you could chop down those trees, or and then that's that, and then it's just a grassy field after that for a few hundred years till the trees grow back. Or you could build it into something sustainable that is good for the country's image, that attracts more tourists, that but still it's hard to, without actually putting that into place and showing them, it's a hard thing to convince them that it's real and true. So we have a few hurdles to get past before we can get to that point, but I'm really confident that once we do, they will see the upside of it and be more supportive in the future. And hopefully we can do it in other parks within Laos. And yeah, that'd be where we did the elephant reintroduction too. So it's a long-term process. It's not as simple as kicking the elephants in the butt and saying,
Good luck.
be free. It's a few years before the elephants are truly like acclimated towards wildlife. So you'd still have kind of that aspect of, the goal would not just be our first 3 or 4 elephants to reintroduce, but it'd be kind of like a constant stream of elephants coming in, captive elephants that we rehabilitate and put back in. So guests could also participate, like, with the elephants that are in that rehabilitation program and see the work that we're doing on that front. And yeah, the park itself actually shares its whole western border with Thailand. There's 3 national parks on the Thai side and a no hunting zone. Actually, the no hunting zone is more well protected than Laos's national protected areas.
Wow.
Thailand does a really good job. It's kind of the gold standard for conservation in Southeast Asia. So there's plenty of room for the elephant population to expand there, and for them to wander over to Thailand. And yeah, so it's a great location, but the hydropower Laos is becoming like the battery for Southeast Asia. They're putting up hydropower plants and reservoirs at just a ridiculous rate, displacing a ton of the wild elephant populations within Laos, not just elephants, but all the species that call those areas home. And there's plans to do a hydropower plant on the Nampoon River, right in the area that we're kind of thinking we're going to do this ecotourism project. So we're going to have to see how this all unfolds as well. But yeah, so it's an uphill battle.
So for the timeline for that, is that something? I guess where what is like the priority level? So like what needs to be in place to get that back started? Is that a conversation you can have with the government now, or are they like we need to see? I guess how is that going? Because obviously, us being conservationists, wildlife biologists, that is the ultimate goal. Like that, getting wild elephants in their natural habitat, being elephants, and then also having a whole almost like a game drive, wildlife drive experience based around that. Like that is so cool. Taking like the safari model and being able to put it as a sustainable income in that area. That's freaking awesome. God, it's awesome. I'm already like, how can I sell these trips that don't exist yet? So, but before all that happens, like, how are you guys going about this? How do you present it to the government? Like, this is what you need to do to the area. Don't put a hydropower dam in. Like, how is that going? Is WWF? Like, are there all those things?
Um, yeah, it's a big process. Honestly, I was hopeful that we would have had this finished probably 3 years ago. I've been working on it pretty consistently. So since it is like national land, a national protected area, um, you have to deal directly with the government to get any sort of right to do any work within the park. So we've submitted our entire feasibility study, our action plan on how we're going to develop it. We've shown, the assets needed, the work experience that we have, the knowledge and know-how to be able to complete this project. We've been working with a team, a law team down in Vientiane, the capital, that basically brings this and presents it all to the related government sectors that kind of make these decisions. We've gotten support letters from, I believe there's 7 different government sectors that have to agree to it before it goes to the prime minister's office, and then it has to go to a national committee and be voted on. So it's tough. They've come back with us with different things saying, well, if we're looking at about like half the park, about 50,000 hectares that we would want like full right to patrol. It would be ours to manage. They came back at one point and said, oh, it's going to be, I can't even remember the exact figure, but it would have been like a few $1,000,000 a year that we had to pay, which was like, okay, yeah, that's not going to happen. And then they came back and they're like, we're like, all we want to do is build like one little eco lodge, a couple of like viewing towers. Like, we're not going to cut down any trees. We're not going to be disturbing. Like, this isn't a mining operation. Like, we're trying to preserve it. Like, oh, well, that's very different. And, well, maybe you can just pay for this little chunk of land that you actually build something on. We've actually got support from the Prime Minister's office. So we've got all of this support, and it seems like even 2 years ago, and it really, again, everything is just completely stalled with COVID. So the past year and a half, it's just been kind of like dead in the water, like no progress at all. Before that, I felt like we were really starting to get somewhere. And then, everything just kept kind of dragging on. And it's in the Siberia province where they hold the Elephant Festival, where most of our elephants are from, where we've kind of battled the government with not conforming to sending our elephants there, not conforming to send our baby elephant for training. So I think we're getting a lot of pushback from the province level government, and it is a very like strong province within the country. I think the governor is giving some like pushing back towards like the prime minister's office. I'm not exactly sure, but it's been kind of stalled and hasn't really gone anywhere. And then we also heard about this hydropower project, which I'm sure they have a lot more money to invest. And it's right in the same area we're looking at. So I think there's a few moving pieces. So if you had asked me 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said this would have already been created and operational. So it's hard for me to give a timeline. We would like to get it done as soon as we possibly can, but it's yeah, I would hope in the next year or two we'll have.
So there's like this this concept of tourism just doesn't exist in Laos, like having an eco lodge in a protected area where tourists come to see wildlife. Does that exist at all?
Wait. A little bit. Yeah, there's down south, there's a place called the Kingfisher Lodge that I'm going to forget the name of the protected area that surrounds it, but it used to be like kind of a haven for bird watchers. And that was like inside.
Kingfisher.
Yeah. That was kind of inside the boundaries of the park. I'm not sure when that opened up, 15 years ago. It was just down there. Yeah, last year. They chopped down all of the forest around it. So now it's just this random little lodge in a giant field. So that project didn't go very far. That was kind of a swing and a miss, but and I don't know the specifics behind what really happened there. But yeah, and then up in Nemet Pului National Protected Area on the border of Vietnam, they do a night safari where they float down the river through the park and you get to see some wildlife. Never actually done it myself, and they do have like some guest accommodations out there. No elephants, unfortunately, but in general, that's it. I mean, there's small little pockets of like zip lines and stuff in, in areas that are, still natural. So it does, but not to the extent that we're talking about building it, and not really for the preservation of species. So it would be on kind of a different level than we've seen in Laos so far.
Because I can see how that might be one of the reasons why you're running into so many issues. It's like, we've not seen this long before. Is it going to bring us this much money when we know hydropower is going to bring us this direct revenue?
For sure.
I can see that being a big issue.
Yeah. So I think there's a few factors that have kind of fallen into place. But yeah, I think some pushback from the local government there, even though we have support from like the central level government and hydropower and money, and yeah, I think there's a lot of different pieces in place that have slowed down the process a lot more than
So it's to the point now where like there's no one outside that can help it anyway. It's really just within the Laotian government itself.
Yes.
Okay, because it's like, I know some conservation travel development people, like I can get whatever you need. I probably know somebody, but it doesn't sound like that's the issue. It sounds like it's purely in country getting the thing off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, we already have architectural designs, like everything like submitted in our feasibility study and our business proposal and all of that. So it's really just getting the approval.
Well,
And then also find the money to be able to build the project. But I'm confident, given the right business proposal, we'll be able to find someone who could invest the capital needed to build it.
absolutely.
I think that'll be one of the easier parts, but yeah, so we'll see. I daydream of the place all the time. It's like it's a little paradise. It's incredible.
Well, when that's built, I'm going to be there. I want to be some of the first guests.
For sure.
That would be incredible. Dang, dude, you have like such a crazy story. And all of this stuff that you've done. So how long have you been there? How long have the Mandalao been around? And
We
at this point?
opened up in 2016. So I guess I probably moved there. Maybe it was 2015 that I moved there full time.
Wow.
And then off and on for a year kind of before that. Like I said, we spent months like toured the whole country, like really tried to learn as much about it as possible and figure out the best possible place for us. Also one where we could see ourselves living.
That's a good point.
It's a very rural country. I don't know what, 26 or whenever I originally moved there, that I was quite prepared to just do straight village life for the next, foreseeable future of my life. So Luang Prabang kind of also, we realized just the tourist flow through there. And also it's just a great place to live. So kind of did a little bit of a balancing act in between there. Yeah. So off and on in 2015 and then full time in 2016.
So what would you say, I love asking this question to pretty much anyone that comes on. In your journey so far, what has been the hardest thing that you've had to overcome?
I got a long list. I'm trying to think of yeah, I mean, I would say it is with the government. I mean, it's just the challenges that we face, like the pushback, the training, just like the training's like kind of the biggest one for me. And just their being so stuck in their ways and not willing to kind of experiment, try this project out in the protected area and like explore tourism. Like it's very corrupt. So, you know, just it seemed like when we originally like kind of came up with these ideas, let's do this. I was down with the WWF all the time, exploring the park, mapping out like the core zone boundaries. Like it's like, yeah, let's do this. We have this locked up. This is a great idea. And then just getting completely just like stonewalled by the government. And there's so many communist government. There's huge government. There's so many different agencies and so many different levels, and like to try and like get through all of that red tape, and you know, you might get 20 different pieces of paper stamped and signed by government officials, and then you move to the next level and then they don't agree, and then those 20 are worthless, and then you have to restart again. So just trying to get support from the government to like move forward on this kind of stuff has been mentally really stressful and challenging. I would say that's been the biggest hurdle.
Well, then on the flip side of that, what's been the most rewarding? What keeps you going?
That one's easy. Yeah, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, but you know, when we originally brought up those 5 elephants, and it's true for all of the elephants that have come to us, that are kind of shells they were shells of what they are today, and just seeing, you know, these scared animals that have lived these horrible lives coming and just turning into completely different creatures, and just, you know, opening up and becoming social with one another, and, you know, being around people and into the water and playing. We've got this Meitu. We don't know exactly with all of our elephants how old they are. It's kind of like a guesstimate, but she's probably in her 50s, late 40s. And she gets down to the river and she plays like she's a 2-year-old baby. Slaps her truck and rolls around and floats downstream. And it's like actually behavior you don't normally see in adult elephants, but it's like she never had a childhood to experience that and be an elephant. So she's getting to live out her childhood fantasies as like an adult. So it's so rewarding to see these elephants like actually enjoy life and appreciate their surroundings and be happy and live the lives that they deserve. So that's what keeps me going, for sure.
It's beautiful. What is a message that you would like to share? A piece of advice, or just if there's one thing that you want somebody to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
Very good question. You know, I guess kind of simply put, certainly when looking at animals in captivity, and this doesn't just have to be for elephants, it can be even for your little kitten right here.
She perked up. She's
She
listening
did.
to you.
You know, we as humans have altered the face of this planet so significantly. And this could also go for wild animals as well. But, you know, animals didn't choose to be put into this position. No elephants chose to be in captivity. It's humans that put them into this position. You know, it's you that decided to get a kitten. And, you know, really with that becomes the responsibility on our part to treat them the way that they deserve and give them the best possible. You know, it's not all these animals. I guess kittens are a little bit different, or cats. You know, she could probably survive on her own in the wild. But, you know, most of our elephants, they rely on humans to survive.
Because that's all they've ever known, right?
Yeah. So it's, you know, just looking at your life and everything around us, you know, we did this to the animals, and it's our obligation to do the right thing and take care of them in the right way.
It's gorgeous. Beautiful. It's awesome. So what is the best way for somebody, I know we mentioned it a little bit ago, but if somebody wants to support you or contact you or reach out to you, what is the best way for someone to go about that?
Yeah, if you'd like to reach out to me personally, I'm not sure if you put like
I've shown notes and stuff, yeah.
yeah, so you have my email, right? Mm-hmm. That's probably the easiest way. Email or phone number, although I'll be back in Laos in about a month or so my phone number here won't work, but I'll send you my WhatsApp number as well.
Okay. Great. I'll put those in the show notes.
Yeah, and then yeah, certainly for any like questions, or if you just want to learn more about the project, like anyone is more than welcome to reach out to me and directly over the phone or via email. And then really for contributions, yeah, directly to our website. The GoFundMe is huge because that's all going directly back to the elephants. And I mean, we had about 75 employees pre-COVID. We're down to about 20. I mean, we had to cut it down to absolute bare bones. I haven't had a salary since March of 2020. So just so everybody knows, like literally everything is going to the elephants right now. My business partner is running, kind of a whole show over there right now. He's making $500 a month. So there's not much overhead. So if you make a donation, like it really is going to not just Mandalao's elephants, but to the Feed the Elephants campaign. Yeah, and either through, the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund, the donations page they have, or Lao Elephant Initiative. But can certainly promise we're making every penny count, and putting it where it's absolutely needed most.
Awesome to hear, about an organization that really is doing, they're walking the walk as they talk the talk. So
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's hopefully when things do open back up, people will, really see our true colors, and then hopefully we'll start getting people back and, get the support that we need to continue pushing forward with the ecotourism and bring our elephants back and continue supporting the projects, the elephants around us that need the most help. So yeah, hopefully it all comes back full circle.
Yeah, hope so. Do you have any parting thoughts before we wrap up today?
No, thank you for having me and your awesome work. And I love that you're meeting a ton of interesting people and getting the message out there on conservation, because there's a lot of people in this world that are, really dedicated and focused towards conservation efforts. And it's wonderful to have a platform like yours where you can get the word out. So thank you very, very much. And I guess excited to see you in Laos. Excited
You were going to see me in Laos.
Excited
It's going to happen.
Excited to see everybody in Laos. So please share the message, and as soon as things open up, come on out and see us and hang out with the elephants. And we can do this together. But it's gonna take a community to be able to make this happen. I certainly can't do it by myself. That's for sure.
Right. And that's what this awesome community is all about, us supporting each other, all for the greater good of wildlife and nature.
For sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Michael.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to get it
for
out.
having me.
Such an interesting conversation, right? It's no surprise that this episode was in the top 5. If you have any questions you'd like me to send to Michael, please let me know via email or in the Rewildologist Facebook group. If you'd like to support the show, please send this episode to a friend that might enjoy it too. Sharing is caring, of course, and getting the good conservation word out there. Last quick thanks to Focusrite for the awesome Vocaster One podcasting kit that I used to record the show. Check out Nature Podcasting under the Resources tab at the website to see everything I used to record the show. Until next time, friends, together we will rewild the planet. Hey, thanks again for listening to this episode of Rewildology. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button to never miss a future episode. Do you have a cool environmental organization, travel, story, or research that you'd like to share? Let me know at rewildology.com. Until next time, friends, together we will rewild the planet.